There is a reason this moment found you, because somewhere, without you hearing the words, someone reached the edge of a truth they could no longer hide. They spoke about marriage, but what left their heart was nothing like anyone expected. The room grew quiet, familiar smiles disappeared, and even they seemed surprised by what they had finally admitted. Yet the most astonishing part has not been revealed. Why would a soul that once stayed silent suddenly confess what had been buried for so long? And why does that confession seem to point directly toward you? Before this message reaches its ending, one hidden promise will change the way you see everything that has been happening. Not every confession begins with courage. Some begin with exhaustion, with a heart that has spent too many nights pretending it no longer feels what it has always known. There comes a sacred moment when the soul grows tired of carrying masks. It no longer seeks approval, it no longer runs from difficult questions, it simply longs for truth. And that is where your person's journey has quietly arrived. While the world measured success by appearances, another conversation was taking place beneath the surface, one that no eye could fully witness. Questions they once pushed away returned with unexpected strength. What is marriage without peace? What is commitment without genuine love? What is a future worth if the heart remains divided? Those questions refused to disappear. Every distraction became weaker. Every excuse became smaller. And something far greater began speaking inside them, not with loud words, but with undeniable clarity. Perhaps you have wondered why certain doors remained closed. Why timing never seemed to cooperate. Why emotions became confusing instead of simple. It may have felt like distance, but unseen preparation often looks exactly like delay. Some seasons are not designed to bring immediate answers. They are designed to remove every illusion that would have destroyed tomorrow's blessing. That is why your waiting has never been empty. Every unanswered prayer. Every unexpected pause. Every lonely evening has quietly been shaping two different hearts toward one unforgettable realization. Yet another unexpected moment is approaching. Because when your person finally spoke honestly about marriage, they did not describe a ceremony. They did not speak about rings. They did not even speak about appearances. Instead, they admitted something few people ever have the courage to say aloud. They confessed that they no longer wanted a relationship built on fear of being alone. They no longer desired promises spoken only because others expected them. For the first time, they admitted they wanted a marriage that felt like peace instead of pressure. A love that healed instead of performed. A home where silence felt safe, rather than lonely. Those listening expected confidence. Instead, they witnessed vulnerability. And vulnerability carries a strange kind of power. Because the moment truth enters a room, pretending quietly walks out. Now you may ask yourself, why would this message be finding me today? Because your own heart has also been changing. Whether you realized it or not, you have begun releasing expectations that once controlled you. You have learned that love cannot be forced. Destiny cannot be rushed. And genuine commitment cannot grow from fear. That wisdom did not arrive overnight. It was born through disappointment. Refined through patience. Strengthened through hope that refused to disappear. Heaven notices every lesson learned in silence. Nothing has been wasted. Not one tear. Not one unanswered question. Not one moment when you wondered if anyone truly understood what your heart carried. There is another detail still hidden. One your person has not fully recognized themselves. Their confession was never only about marriage. It was actually about identity. Because when someone finally understands the kind of love they deserve, they also discover the person they are becoming. That transformation changes every future decision. It changes what they pursue, what they release, and who they are finally brave enough to choose. Something unseen has already begun moving into place. Not through pressure. Not through manipulation, but through quiet alignment. Piece by piece. Conversation by conversation. Choice by choice. The path ahead is becoming clearer than either of you can currently imagine. Still, one final truth remains unspoken. There is a sentence your soulmate has not yet shared with the world, a sentence that explains why this confession happened now instead of months ago. When those words are finally revealed, nothing about this story will look the same again. And that moment is closer than anyone realizes. A single sentence, spoken almost in a whisper, can alter the direction of an entire life. What is astonishing is not that your soulmate finally confessed something about marriage, it is who they were speaking to when the truth escaped their heart. No one expected that conversation to become the turning point. They thought they were answering an ordinary question, yet every word uncovered something they had hidden even from themselves. And the sentence they could not take back is the very reason this message must continue. There are moments when heaven does not interrupt with thunder. It arrives through quiet conversations, unexpected pauses, and questions that seem ordinary until they awaken something eternal. That is exactly what happened. Someone looked into your soulmate's eyes and asked a simple question. If the right person stood before you today, would you truly be ready for marriage? Silence answered first. Not because they had nothing to say, but because their soul refused to offer another rehearsed response. For years, they believed readiness meant having every plan completed, every fear conquered, every uncertainty erased. But in that sacred pause, they realized something far more profound. A prepared heart is not a perfect heart. It is an honest one. The realization settled over them so deeply that even they struggled to understand why emotion suddenly filled their voice. They finally admitted, "I don't fear marriage anymore." Then they stopped. The room waited. Their heartbeats seemed louder than the silence surrounding them. Because another truth was fighting its way to the surface. Not every confession happens all at once. Sometimes truth arrives one breath at a time. One layer after another. And the next layer carried your presence in ways no one else could recognize. Your soul has been asking questions of its own. Why have certain connections never lasted? Why has your heart refused to settle for relationships that looked right but never felt right? Why has an invisible pull kept telling you there is something greater waiting? Those questions were never signs of failure. They were signs of discernment. The path meant for you has always required more than convenience. It has required alignment. That is why so many chapters ended before they could become your forever. Not because love abandoned you, but because destiny protected you from promises that could never honor your spirit. Your soulmate has begun seeing this same pattern. They are no longer grieving what slipped away. Instead, they are beginning to understand why it had to. Every closed door now feels less like rejection, and more like quiet redirection. That understanding has brought an unexpected peace. Peace creates clarity. And clarity gives courage to speak what fear once buried. Then came the sentence no one anticipated. They quietly confessed, "I don't want a marriage built because the time feels right." Another pause followed. They lowered their eyes, as though searching for words they had never spoken before. "I want the person who makes forever feel like home." No one interrupted. No one laughed. Because something sacred filled the silence. Even those listening sensed they were witnessing more than conversation. They were witnessing transformation. When a heart stops chasing appearances, it finally becomes capable of recognizing authenticity. That change cannot be rushed. It cannot be manufactured. It only happens when the soul becomes willing to release every illusion that once felt safe. And perhaps that is exactly where you are today. You are learning that real love is never sustained by urgency. It grows through trust. Through patience. Through the quiet confidence that what is meant for you does not need endless pretending. Still, there remains one mystery your soulmate has not solved. After speaking those unexpected words, a memory surfaced. A memory they thought had faded long ago. It arrived without warning. It stirred emotions they believed had disappeared. And somehow, that forgotten memory carried an invisible connection to you. They have not yet understood why it returned. But soon, they will. Because the next revelation will uncover the hidden promise concealed inside that memory. And once it is revealed, even your soulmate will realize this confession about marriage was only the beginning of a much greater awakening. Some memories never disappear, they simply wait for the exact moment when the heart is finally ready to understand them. That forgotten moment has now returned to your soulmate with unexpected force. It was not loud, it was not dramatic, yet it carried a feeling so familiar that they had to stop everything they were doing. They could not explain why one small memory suddenly outweighed 1,000 recent moments. What they are about to discover hidden inside it will redefine everything they believed about love, commitment, and the future. The memory was surprisingly ordinary. Not a grand celebration. Not a breathtaking destination. Not a perfect romance. It was a quiet moment. A simple conversation. A fleeting feeling that lasted only a few minutes. Yet somehow it remained alive beneath the surface of their heart. At the time, they ignored it. Life was moving too quickly. Responsibilities demanded attention. Expectations from others became louder than the gentle whisper within. So they convinced themselves that the feeling would eventually disappear. But truth has an unusual way of surviving. It waits patiently. Never demanding attention. Never forcing itself into your life. Until the exact season when your soul becomes strong enough to receive it. That season has arrived. As your soulmate reflected on that forgotten memory, they realized it was never about a specific place or event. It was about how they felt. For the first time in years, they remembered what peace felt like. Not excitement that fades after a moment. Not endless uncertainty disguised as passion. But a calm confidence. The kind of feeling that tells the heart, you don't have to perform here. You don't have to earn acceptance. You can simply be yourself. That realization shook them more than they expected. Because they suddenly recognized something they had spent years searching for in the wrong places. People often mistake intensity for destiny. But heaven rarely speaks through chaos. It speaks through quiet certainty. Through gentle conviction. Through a peace that remains even when circumstances are uncertain. Perhaps that explains something in your own journey. Have you noticed how your heart has slowly become less interested in chasing what merely looks impressive? You are beginning to value what feels genuine. What brings rest instead of confusion? What strengthens your spirit instead of exhausting it? That change did not happen by accident. Every disappointment quietly refined your vision. Every delay taught your heart the difference between temporary excitement and lasting fulfillment. You have become someone who no longer asks only, "Who will choose me?" Now your soul asks a far deeper question. Who will protect the peace that heaven has been building inside me? That question changes everything. Because when peace becomes your standard, many distractions lose their power. Your soulmate is walking through that same awakening. The confession about marriage was only the first visible sign. Inside, a deeper transformation continues. They are beginning to understand that marriage is not about escaping loneliness. It is about building a life where two hearts encourage one another toward purpose. It is choosing kindness when emotions fluctuate. It is remaining faithful to truth when convenience offers easier paths. It is creating a refuge where both souls continue growing instead of shrinking. These thoughts now visit them often. Sometimes during quiet mornings. sometimes late at night. Sometimes in unexpected moments when the world around them becomes completely still. And every time those thoughts return, one question follows. Who is the person I can become my truest self with? That question has not left them. It grows stronger each day. Yet another unexpected detail has entered the story. Recently, someone offered your soulmate advice. The words sounded reasonable, practical, safe. They were encouraged to choose comfort over conviction. To settle for what looked acceptable instead of waiting for what felt deeply right. For a brief moment, they considered it. After all, the easier road often appears attractive when waiting feels long. But something inside refused to agree. A quiet voice reminded them. A lifetime should never be built upon a compromise your soul cannot celebrate. Those words lingered. They echoed long after the conversation ended. And from that moment forward, their vision became even clearer. Not because every answer had appeared, but because they finally understood what they could no longer accept. Sometimes clarity begins with knowing what no longer belongs in your future. That realization is opening a new chapter. One that neither fear nor outside opinions can easily close. Still, there is one final piece that has not yet fallen into place. Very soon, your soulmate will encounter a sign so unexpected, so deeply personal, that they will stop questioning whether this transformation is real. It will not come with loud applause. It will arrive quietly. At precisely the moment they least expect it. And when they recognize what that sign truly means, the confession about marriage will become something even greater. The beginning of a promise that neither time nor distance could erase. The sign will arrive so naturally that most people would overlook it, yet your soulmate will not. Something within them has changed. Their heart has become sensitive to the quiet ways destiny moves. What once seemed like coincidence will suddenly feel filled with meaning. They will pause, not because the world has become louder, but because an unmistakable peace will settle over them. And in that stillness, they will realize the confession about marriage was never the final revelation. It was the invitation to something far more extraordinary. There are seasons when heaven answers through dramatic moments. And there are seasons when the answer comes through gentle confirmation. This is becoming a season of confirmation. Your soulmate has stopped demanding perfect certainty before taking every step. Instead, they have begun listening more carefully to the quiet convictions that refuse to disappear, to the hope that keeps returning after disappointment, to the dream they once tried to silence because it felt impossible. That dream has not faded. It has only matured. It no longer asks for fantasy. It asks for faithfulness. That is a remarkable transformation. Because when a heart matures, its desires begin to change. The need to impress becomes the desire to understand. The urge to hurry becomes the wisdom to wait. The fear of missing out becomes confidence that what is truly meant for you cannot be stolen by someone else's timeline. Your soulmate is beginning to carry that confidence. Not loudly. Not perfectly. But sincerely. And sincerity has a way of opening doors that effort alone never could. You may not see those doors yet. From where you stand, the path may still appear unfinished. Questions may still visit your thoughts when the day grows quiet. You may wonder why everything has unfolded so differently than you imagined. Yet consider this. If every chapter had happened exactly as you planned, would you have become the person you are today? Would your heart have learned patience, compassion, discernment? The quiet strength that now lives within you? Growth rarely announces itself while it is happening. Only later do you recognize that every difficult season was shaping a wiser version of yourself. Your soulmate is beginning to notice that same truth. They no longer resent every delay. Instead, They are finding gratitude in lessons they once resisted. That gratitude has softened something inside them. A softened heart hears what a guarded heart cannot. Then something unexpected happened. They found themselves watching an older couple. Nothing extraordinary seemed to be taking place. There were no grand gestures. No elaborate words. Just two people walking side by side. One instinctively slowed their pace so the other would never feel left behind. One quietly reached out a hand without being asked. One smiled at the other with the familiarity of countless ordinary days shared together. For everyone else, it lasted only a passing moment. For your soulmate, it became a living answer. They realized that lasting love is rarely built on extraordinary occasions. It is built on ordinary moments repeated with extraordinary faithfulness. That realization lingered long after the couple disappeared from view. It challenged every unrealistic expectation they had carried. Marriage no longer appeared as a finish line. It became a daily choice. 1,000 quiet acts of kindness. 1,000 opportunities to forgive. 1,000 chances to protect one another's peace. And strangely, instead of frightening them, that vision filled them with hope. Because for the first time, forever no longer felt overwhelming. It felt possible. Perhaps your own heart has been preparing for that same understanding. Perhaps you have been waiting for dramatic proof while heaven has been patiently teaching you to recognize quiet miracles. Sometimes the greatest blessing is not the moment two people finally meet. Sometimes it is the people they become before they meet. That preparation cannot be rushed. It is crafted through unseen victories. Private prayers. Silent perseverance. And choices no one applauds except heaven. Your journey has never been invisible. Every act of faith. Every decision to remain kind when bitterness seemed easier. Every time you chose hope instead of surrender. Those moments have been quietly building a foundation strong enough to carry what comes next. Yet one mystery remains. There is still a conversation your soulmate has not had. A conversation they have postponed more than once because they feared its outcome. But circumstances are changing. The opportunity to speak honestly is drawing closer. When that conversation finally begins, a truth they have protected for far too long will no longer remain hidden. And the first words spoken in that moment will leave everyone present in complete silence. Not every life-changing conversation begins with confidence. Sometimes it begins with trembling hands and a heart that refuses to remain silent any longer. Your soulmate has reached that threshold. They can feel that postponing the truth will only create more distance from the future they truly desire. Yet they have no idea that before the conversation ends, one unexpected response will reveal a lesson they were never prepared to hear. For days, they rehearsed countless versions of what they wanted to say. Some sounded strong. Some sounded safe. Some protected their pride. But every rehearsed sentence felt incomplete. Because truth cannot be perfectly scripted. It must be spoken from a heart that has finally stopped hiding. There comes a moment when silence becomes heavier than honesty. That is the moment your soulmate is approaching. They have realized that pretending certainty while carrying unanswered questions is no longer possible. They would rather risk being misunderstood than continue living behind carefully chosen words. That decision is not born from weakness. It is born from courage. Real courage is rarely loud. It is the quiet decision to become authentic when fear still whispers that it would be easier to stay hidden. Perhaps you have stood at that same crossroads. Perhaps there were moments when your own heart wanted to speak. But fear convinced you to wait. Fear often disguises itself as wisdom. It says, maybe tomorrow. Maybe when everything is perfect. Maybe when there is no chance of rejection. But tomorrow becomes another tomorrow. Perfection never arrives. And the opportunity quietly slips away. Heaven has been teaching both of you the same lesson. Love grows where honesty is welcomed. Not where emotions are endlessly postponed. As the day of that long-awaited conversation drew near, your soulmate noticed something unusual. The anxiety they expected never fully arrived. Instead, there was a calm they could not explain. It did not erase every question. It simply reminded them that peace does not require knowing every outcome. Sometimes peace comes from knowing you are finally walking in truth. That quiet confidence became their strength. Then the conversation finally began. It was simpler than they had imagined. No dramatic setting. No perfect timing. Just two hearts willing to stop speaking around the truth. And begin speaking from it. For a few moments. Only ordinary words were exchanged. The kind that most people would forget. Yet beneath every sentence, something deeper was unfolding. Then came the question that changed everything. What do you truly believe marriage is? The room fell still. No rehearsed answer appeared. Only honesty. Your soulmate looked down for a moment. Smiled softly. And replied. I used to think marriage was finding someone who completed my life. A gentle silence followed. Then they continued. Now I believe it is two whole hearts choosing, every single day, to protect what heaven is building between them. Those words surprised even them. Because they had never spoken them aloud before. The conversation did not become emotional because of dramatic promises. It became unforgettable because everyone present recognized the difference between borrowed opinions and lived wisdom. There is a quiet authority that comes from lessons learned through experience. Your soulmate has begun carrying that authority. Not because they know everything, but because they finally know what truly matters. Peace over appearances. Truth over performance. Faith over fear. Commitment over convenience. As those words settled into the hearts of everyone listening, someone asked one final question. One that no one expected. If that is what you believe, then who do you hope to build that life with? The air became completely still. Your soulmate did not answer immediately. Not because they had no answer, but because one name rose within their heart before any other thought could form. They weren't ready to speak it aloud. Not yet. But from that very moment, they could no longer pretend they didn't know where their heart was leading. And neither could heaven. Because the next chapter will reveal what happens when a hidden name refuses to remain hidden. And when destiny gently opens the door that both hearts have been unknowingly walking toward all along. Some truths can remain hidden in the mind, but never in the heart. The name your soulmate refused to speak aloud did not disappear when the conversation ended. Instead, it echoed even louder in the silence that followed. They tried to move on with the rest of the day, to return to ordinary routines, yet every ordinary moment kept leading them back to the same realization. And before the sun set, something happened that made them wonder if heaven had been preparing this moment far longer than they had ever imagined. They left that conversation carrying more peace than answers. Strangely, the uncertainty no longer frightened them. For years, they had searched for certainty before taking a step. Now they understood something far greater. Sometimes certainty comes because you take the step. Not before it. That quiet realization changed the rhythm of their thoughts. Instead of asking, "What if everything goes wrong?" a different question emerged. What if I have been protected for this exact moment? When the heart begins asking better questions, life begins revealing better answers. As evening settled in, they found themselves alone with their thoughts. No distractions. No voices telling them what they should want. Only stillness. And in that stillness, they remembered every chapter that once felt like a painful ending. The relationship that taught them self-respect. The disappointment that revealed hidden strength. The delay that cultivated patience. The lonely season that deepened their faith. Suddenly, those memories no longer felt like separate stories. They fit together like pieces of a masterpiece that had always been forming beneath the surface. Nothing had been random. Nothing had been wasted. Even the chapters they wished they could erase had quietly become the very lessons preparing them for lasting love. Perhaps the same is true for you. Maybe there are moments you still struggle to understand. Days when you questioned why the path became so difficult. Nights when hope felt fragile. Yet what if those seasons were never designed to break your spirit, but to strengthen its foundation? A tree with shallow roots may grow quickly, but only deep roots can withstand powerful storms. Heaven has been growing roots within you. Roots of compassion. Roots of wisdom. Roots of unwavering hope. Those roots are invisible. Yet they will one day support blessings far greater than what is visible today. Your soulmate is beginning to recognize those same unseen roots within themselves. They no longer admire only outward beauty. They have begun looking for kindness, integrity, gentleness. The quiet consistency that remains when excitement fades. They have discovered that forever is built by character, not by perfect circumstances. That realization has transformed their understanding of marriage. Marriage is no longer a destination in their mind. It has become a sacred partnership. A place where two imperfect people encourage one another toward becoming their highest selves. Not because either one is flawless, but because both are willing to keep growing. Then something beautifully unexpected unfolded. As they looked out into the fading light, a single thought arrived with unmistakable clarity. I don't need someone who removes every challenge from my life. Another pause. I need someone who reminds me that no challenge has to be faced alone. Those words settled deep within their soul. For the first time, marriage no longer represented obligation. It represented companionship, shared purpose, quiet loyalty. A promise renewed not only on extraordinary days, but in the countless ordinary moments that truly shape a lifetime. And somewhere, without fully realizing it, your own journey has been preparing you for that same understanding. Every time you chose forgiveness over resentment, you strengthened your future. Every time you remained faithful to hope despite disappointment, you expanded your heart's capacity to love. Every time you refused to become bitter, you quietly protected the peace that your future deserves. Those choices matter more than you know. Because destiny is rarely built in dramatic moments alone. It is built through ordinary decisions repeated with extraordinary faith. Now another door is beginning to open. Not through force. Not through coincidence. But through perfect timing. Someone your soulmate deeply trusts is about to ask one final question. A question so personal, so unexpected, that there will be no room left for vague answers or hidden feelings. The response given in that moment will become the final piece of a confession that has been unfolding since the very beginning. And when those words are finally spoken, even your soulmate will realize that the truth about marriage was never only about finding the right person. It was about becoming the person